What is up, everybody? This is Liam Murphy, changing things up from our usual daily live stream to bring you a recorded video today. Today, I'm going to be talking about the NFL players who could be traded during the 2023 NFL season. I am a three-time NFL best ball champion with over $1.3 million in earnings, and wanted to make some more recorded videos for the people out there. I know not everyone has the time to catch my hour-long stream. So make sure you hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and let's jump into today's video. Now, trades in the NFL used to be a rarity at the deadline. However, last year we started seeing a lot of them. So I think even though it's hard, it's a concept that's hard to predict, we are doing ourselves a disservice to just totally ignore the problem. We need to think about things even if they're hard, and we could really potentially profit from them in fantasy football if we hit the right trades to the right partners or what have you. So let's jump into this here. These are the players who were traded at last year's deadline that are relevant for fantasy football. Now, there was a lot more trades. It was a very active trade deadline, and I think that's something that we could see, if not this year, in future years down the deadline. So real quick, just recapping that before we jump into the players that could be traded this year. The 49ers traded for Christian McCaffrey. This is a running back who was on a bad team, the Panthers. He's electric, he's young, and the 49ers went and got him. It made sense for both teams. CMC was not going to stay a Panther. So the Panthers, and clearly in a rebuild, got some draft capital, and the 49ers got a piece that they thought could take them to a Super Bowl. So this makes sense. It's a trade deadline that we're going to use as a basis for a lot of our trades, where contending team, the 49ers, Panthers, a team that's not a contending team, rebuilding team, gets a trade. I think Bears trading for Chase Claypool for a second rounder is also a trade we want to keep in mind. This is a team in the Bears who's not a contending team. However, they did have a young quarterback in Justin Fields, and they felt like they did not have enough pass game weapons for him. So they went and got Chase Claypool for a second, which even if it is an overpay by a little bit, I'm still okay with the trade from the Bears' perspective, because you need to be able to assess your quarterback, whether they are good or not, whether they are the future. Are we going to build around this player? And you can't know that if your pass catchers are Velus Jones and gang. You need to go out and get actual NFL wide receivers to judge your quarterback, not to mention Chase Claypool, a fine NFL wide receiver. The Bills, another contending team, traded for Nyheim Hines for Zach Moss and a conditional fifth. The Colts traded for Zach Moss for Hines. So this, the Bills were getting a punt returner. Nyheim Hines maybe had potential to be part of the offense, wasn't really. Zach Moss for the Colts, they were just getting the draft capital. They probably didn't care between Hines and Moss. They didn't. They're just taking the player that's relatively the same for the pick. The Dolphins traded for Jeff Wilson Jr. for a fifth. This made sense. The Dolphins got a running back that they sorely needed. The Chase Edmonds experiment fell flat on its face, and the 49ers got some draft capital after the CMC trade. The Jags trade for Calvin Ridley for conditional fifth and a 2024 conditional second. This made all the sense in the world. Falcons rebuilding. The Ridley era was over. The Jags had a new superstar quarterback potentially in Trevor Lawrence. Wanted to get more pass game weapons for him. Knew they were unlikely to win the Super Bowl last year, but why not get the guy in place really cheap who could be a star, for Trevor for the future. The Broncos traded for Chase Edmonds in the Chubb trade. Chase Edmonds was a nothing thing. This was just to get the Chubb trade done with the Dolphins. The Vikings traded for Hawkinson for a fourth and a conditional fourth for a second and a third with the Lions. And this, again, marks the sense where the Vikings thought they could contend in a weak NFC. They got Hawkinson, another pass game weapon for them. Kirk Cousins liked to target the tight end. I think this trade made sense. The Lions decided Hawkinson's not our future. New coaching staff, didn't draft him. Let's ship him out for some picks. We already got an offense that they just weren't Hawkinson people. The Chiefs traded for Kadarius Toney for 3rd and 6 with the Giants. This made a lot of sense. The Chiefs' path wide receiver core was pretty weak. Tony, a really talented player when he gets the ball and when he's healthy, and Tony was just never going to be a Giant. So, like this trades for both sides. The Chiefs get a piece that could help them win the Super Bowl potentially. The Giants get some draft capital so they can build the players they want. And the Tony era with the Giants was clearly over. The Jets trade for James Robinson after the Breece Hall injury, I believe. And yeah, this was a whatever. This was the Jets just like, yeah, we need a body. James Robinson was cheap. It wasn't a big trade. The Cardinals traded for Robbie Anderson. He now goes by Chosen Anderson for a 6th and a 7th. This was, again, a whatever burger. This was just Cliff Kingsbury, to be honest. So those were the trades that happened last year. Let's jump into the players that could be traded this year, why it makes sense, why it doesn't make sense potentially. First up, we have the Bucs. Chris Godwin and Mike Evans, I believe, could be on the trade block. Let's talk about why. Let's talk about why it wouldn't make sense. Let's talk about the teams they could go to. So first off, why could they be traded? Mike Evans is going to be 30 this year, and Chris Godwin's going to be 27. So these are aging assets, and on a very likely bad rebuilding team in the Buccaneers post Tom Brady with Baker Mayfield at quarterback. This is a team that's going to be potentially in the running for the number 1 overall pick for Caleb Williams, the young superstar quarterback in college right now. So it makes sense, if I was ranking these, I would say Mike Evans is far more likely to be traded. He's 30. The teams I could see trading for Mike Evans, I would say would be the contending teams who have a wide receiver injury, or just in the Chiefs case, probably feel it isn't strong enough. So the Chiefs, I could see trading for Mike Evans. The Bills in a Gabe Davis injury or what have you, or if the group's just not getting it done, or if it's cheap enough. And then I would also say the Panthers and the Texans make sense as a trade partner for Mike Evans, because these are teams who just took a quarterback number 1 overall, just took a quarterback number 2 overall. Their wide receiver cores are very weak compared to the league. So Mike Evans would allow these quarterbacks to develop in the NFL and allow the franchises to assess whether they have their franchise quarterback of the future. Chris Godwin, again, far less likely to be traded at 27, but I could see him traded to all these teams for the same reason. The Bills are more likely to get a Godwin than a Mike Evans because they like to utilize the slot wide receiver position. And again, he's a younger asset. Now, I would say, why would trading these guys not make sense for the Bucs? It would be really it's not really to contend this year, because could they make the playoffs in a weak NFC? They could. But more likely what they're thinking is, if we do get a young quarterback next year, a rookie quarterback with a high pick, we're going to want the Chris Godwins and the Mike Evans of the NFL to assess whether we have a hit at quarterback. So it really depends how they view that, how they view Mike Evans, who is far more likely to be an AJ Green type fall from grace, where he very quickly is just done. So I could see them trading at least Mike Evans if they could get a second or a third. Next up, we have the Tennessee Titans trading away Derick Henry. I could see the teams that would want to trade for him would be a team like the Chiefs again, a team that wants to try to go win the Super Bowl. If Isaiah Pacheco's not working out, if Jerick McKinnon isn't, if they just want to be able to establish the run come cold weather games and late in the year. And then also, I would say the Bengals and the Vikings would make sense, where the Bengals would be if Joe Mixon's off the team, the Vikings would be if Dalvin Cook's off the team, and if they wanted to get Derrick Henry, make a push for the Super Bowl this year, if they felt like he was cheap enough and made sense. From the Titans side, this is a rebuilding team. It makes almost no sense for them to keep Derrick Henry this year. Yeah, their division's not the strongest. They could, in a miracle year, they could maybe limp into the NFL and win that division, but they're not winning the Super Bowl. They need to rebuild for the future. They need to get pass game weapons around. So if they can get any meaningful draft capital for Derrick Henry, I would make that trade. Next up, we have DeAndre Hopkins on the Cardinals being traded away. Hopkins was a guy we thought could be traded away before the NFL draft and then during the NFL draft to a team like the Bills, a team like the Chiefs. I would say Hopkins is not a guy I could see being traded to the Panthers, the Texans, the bad teams with young quarterbacks. He's pretty strictly going to a contender. So he's probably going to be cut. But if he's still on the team and the Cardinals are trying to get their trade capital for a very bad Cardinals team, I could see the Chiefs and the Bills being major players for him. Like a team like the Bengals doesn't make any sense. They don't have enough money. They have a lot of wide receivers already. So mainly teams like the Chiefs and the Bills. Next up, we have Alvin Kamara for the Saints. Now, this is a tricky one because Alvin Kamara is he is 28, by the way. I forgot to say that. Derick Henry is 29. DeAndre Hopkins is 31 this year. Alvin Kamara is going to be 28 this year. He is in some legal trouble, and where we don't know if he's going to get suspended from the NFL for punching a man allegedly. He did do it on video, but I could see the Saints trading him kind of similarly to the CMC because the Saints went out and drafted Kendre Miller. They signed Jamal Williams, so it'd be unusual for them to trade any of these guys. Now, the Saints have a very easy schedule this year, and they have a weak division. Their Vegas win total is around like 9.5, so they have a pretty good team, and pretty good playoff teams don't trade away players too often. But if they could get Kamara for like a third, a fourth, maybe they might consider it if they think that he's going to slow soon or it's just not worth it. And the teams I could see trading for Kamara, if they do, again, this one's less likely, I would say, are the Chiefs again. Makes sense. The Texans, I could see trading for him, where not in the division. Dameon Pierce and Devin Singletary, not the most impressive duo in the world. And they just want to give CJ Stroud a pass game weapon. And then also the Bengals, if they could get him for cheap, and the Vikings in the Dalvin Cook, again, makes sense. Next up, we have the Packers and Aaron Jones. Now, Aaron Jones is going to be 29 this year. If the Packers find out the Jordan Love era is not winning a lot of games and they might need a quarterback next year to replace Jordan Love, or they just don't think Aaron Jones is getting it done, I could totally see him being on the move. Teams I could see trading for him include the Jets and Aaron Rodgers. That would make all the sense in the world. If Breece Hall's a little bit slow, if they just want another weapon, they already brought in Randall Cobb to the Jets. They already brought in Allen Lazard to the Jets. I assume Aaron Rodgers likes Aaron Jones, and just bring another running back duo there. And then I could also see the Chiefs, the Texans, and the Bengals trading for Aaron Jones if he's cheap enough for those organizations, trying to get like a year or two out of him there. Next up, I would say, is Cam Akers from the Rams. The Rams is a team that could be okay if Matt Stafford comes back, but most likely, and if their line's better this year, but most likely probably going to be like a middling, not great team. Cam Akers, a talented guy. He's only 24, and so that would be unusual. However, what made me put him on the possible trade candidates is because him and Sean McVay have had a lot of back and forth, fights basically. And so if the Rams are either not going to make the playoffs or they're just over it, I could see them trading Cam Akers away, trying to recoup some draft capital, moving on. They have Kyron Williams. They drafted a guy in the draft. So, he could be on the move too. I could see like a team like the Cowboys being mixed in for Cam Akers, kind of like to mix in with Pollard as a 1-2 punch. Again, the Bengals make sense. The Chiefs make sense. The Vikings make sense. Those are teams I could see trading for Cam Akers. And even because he's so young, I could see really any team trying to rejuvenate him. Pretty good player when he came back from the Achilles. Like the Texans, again, if they're just like, Dameon Pierce is not great. Devin Singletary is not great. Let's get another guy in there. Next up, we have Hunter Renfrow, who will be 28 this year. Now, the Raiders are a okay, not great team. They got the Jimmy G era going on. What made me put Hunter Renfrow on the trade block is, they're in a division with the Chiefs. They're in a division with the Chargers. Two teams are probably going to be better than the Raiders. making it hard for the Raiders to make the playoffs in a competitive AFC. And the Raiders signed Jacoby Myers. So that makes me think that Hunter Renfrow could be on the move for cheap to a team. I'm not really sure who would go for Renfrow. I could probably the young quarterbacks like the Panthers again, just getting a solid slot guy in there. The Texans, if they don't like what Tank Dell, the Texans makes less sense because they do have some slot guys, but like the Panthers, definitely not the Chiefs. We're not going to see division trades. The Bills, maybe, if they want a cheap guy, really any team that's in contention and wants a cheap slot guy. Next up, we have the Broncos duo in Courtland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy. These players are going to be 28 in Sutton's case and 24 in Jeudy's case this year. Now, these guys have been rumored to be on the trade block for a long time. Sean Payton took over the Broncos. They drafted a wideout in the second round of the NFL draft. Tim Patrick is back this year, and it's always been rumored that Tim Patrick is one of Russell Wilson's favorite targets. So I think it's more likely Sutton is traded because of his age at 28 than Jeudy at 24. And these guys to me make all the sense in the world for the young quarterbacks. I don't really see like the Bills too interested in them. Judy's probably too expensive, but the Texans, if they want Sutton, or the Panthers, like immediately Sutton probably comes to wide receiver 1 on those teams. It allows it's kind of like the Chase Claypool trade where it's like a good, not great NFL wide receiver. You got a young quarterback. You need to assess him. Your wide receiver room is weak. So I could see both those players being on the move. On a Broncos team that is, just like the Raiders, they're in a tough division. They're in the AFC. They're probably not going to be winning a ton of games this year. I'd imagine Sean Payton's going to be starting the rebuild soon. Last, we have literally any of the Giants slot wide receivers. These are the wide receivers who I have on the Giants right now that play slot wide receiver. You have Jamison Crowder. You have Sterling Shepard. You have Wan'Dale Robinson. And you have Paris Campbell. Now, maybe all these signings, the Crowder, the Campbell signing, and bringing back Shepard is an indication that Wan'Dale Robinson is not going to be healthy this year after he was drafted by the team last year and then got hurt. But, to me, it's just a very crowded room. A lot of these guys are not going to be traded for a lot of picks, like Crowder, like Sterling Shepard. Paris Campbell would be weird to be traded because he was signed this year. But I could see the Giants at the trade deadline. They're kind of a weird team because they're also a team that would be buying. Like I could see them trading for Courtland Sutton, immediately being the wide receiver 1 on the outside, competing with guys like Darius Slayton, guys like Isaiah Hodgins. So I could see them buying outside wide receivers, but selling slot to a needy slot team, a team like the Panthers. Again, a team like the Bills is less likely, but that's where I could see them traded. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. Help me out with my goal. And check out my live stream comment to see me stream a draft. Let me know what players you think I missed, any players you think that could be traded in this year in the NFL, and where you think they could be traded to. Have a great day.